the day of the race. Everybody's leaving the grid, the cars are about to fire up. You know, drivers, start your engines. And they all fire up and you don't hardly hear them, and then and 100,000 people, however many are sitting on that front straightaway, all cheered. And that was, I think that was Jim's moment. And I think Rick's as well. Like, that was the moment. It was like, yes, this is what we came here for.
Today, we're looking back at a project that took NASCAR across the Atlantic to race a stock car at the world-famous 24 Hours of Le Mans. That project was called Garage 56. This was a huge undertaking, but it was a real celebratory occasion. So we're commemorating that amazing achievement, but we're also here to celebrate the release of a documentary that goes behind the scenes and documents everything that happened at Le Mans racing this amazing Chevrolet Camaro in Garage 56. Hello and welcome to NASCAR to Le Mans, presented by Goodyear. I'm Leigh Diffey here at the General Motors Technical Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we've got a group of NASCAR Hall of Famers: Jeff Gordon, Vice Chairman of Hendrick Motorsports; Jimmie Johnson, 7-time champ, who was one of the 3 drivers here, former Hendrick driver; and Vice President of Competition from Hendrick, Chad Knaus. Jeff, I want to start with you first. Having you two on my wings here, you raced as teammates in Cup, 515 starts as teammates. What made you guys so good together?
I think from the beginning, Jimmie and I were always friends, and we wanted good things to happen for one another. But we had a nice rivalry, too, that elevated how we just pushed Hendrick Motorsports and our teams to just continue to push the limits. And then, of course, he won all the championships during that time. So
we'll get to Garage 56 in just a moment. But,
yeah,
but you carry away from this.
Are we here to talk about us?
As Jeff pointed out, we clicked right away. It was just such an amazing opportunity, and when I think back about my journey in motorsports, timing's everything. And I was able to get to know Jeff at the right moment in time, was able to be in the Hendrick system at the right moment in time. They were looking to expand to a 4th car. This guy over here was trying to figure out what his next move was. And at the time, I mean, I recall plenty of criticism around what Jeff Gordon thought he saw and what Rick Hendrick thought that he saw. And it wasn't easy at times to hear and read some of that stuff, but roll into California Speedway 10 races into our rookie year and we win. It's like, all right, they saw something.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Guess we hired the right guys, didn't we?
Chad, you were on the box for Jimmie's championships, but you got to see everything from an elevated position. What was the magic here? Because there's magic involved in this Garage 56 project, but what was the magic you saw when these two were still in the cockpit?
There was a lot of magic. First, it was really interesting. Obviously, Jeff identifying Jimmie, bringing him under his wing in all aspects of motorsports, not only from driving, but from business and how to conduct himself on and off the racetrack, all of those things. You know, Jeff was definitely a guide for Jimmie and me, quite honestly. And much like Jeff alluded to, as the success started to grow, the guidance really turned into pushing one another. And, you know, it wasn't always comfortable for any of us through some of those experiences, but man, it really made us elevate what we were doing as teammates. It was testing the waters. It was driving us to continue to do what is best. And anytime you're trying to do something extremely successful, you got to be a little bit uncomfortable. And there was some uncomfortable times, but man, we definitely had a lot of success because of that.
Hendrick Motorsports, in collaboration with NASCAR, will field an entry in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2023.
But who will drive this modified next-gen car? Hendrick Motorsports hopes that one of their Cup drivers can do it, but that will depend on the 2023 Cup schedule.
This unique collaboration between NASCAR and Chevrolet, Goodyear, the ACO, Hendrick Motorsports, and the people to pilot it: Jimmie Johnson, Mike Rockenfeller, and Jensen Button. So many entities involved, from Hendrick Motorsports to Chevrolet, Goodyear. The question that I think I got asked a lot was, how did this come about?
Exactly. How did it come about? Because I just remember the first time that Rick Hendrick mentioned something to me, and he's like, hey, Jim France called, and he's got this project he's really passionate about, and he wants to set up a meeting, and he's got a video that he wants to show us.
NASCAR founder Bill France Sr. had a vision to take NASCAR beyond its grassroots beginnings and on to the global motorsport stage. Now, nearly a half-century later, NASCAR has been invited back to Le Mans. This is Garage 56.
When I watched that video, I was blown away. I was like, wow, obviously they put a lot into this sizzle reel, if you want to call it that. And there's a lot of history between Le Mans, NASCAR, and this is something Jim France is very, very passionate about. And so that kind of piqued my interest of okay, maybe, you know, this is cool. This could be fun. I still didn't think it was reality, though. I was like, yeah, that's a stretch. But I remember we were at Daytona for the Rolex 24 Hours, and a meeting occurred, you know, that had Chevrolet, Goodyear, Jim, Rick, and John Doonan, and I mean, everybody was in the room basically, and that video played up on a big screen, and I mean, everybody was kind of like in awe, and I could tell right then just the reaction throughout the room. I was like, oh, this is going to happen. You know, Jim is going to make sure this is going to happen, and I think it just gradually just started getting everybody on board. Of course, there were questions, but everybody was on board of all right, how much time do we have and how are we going to do this?
Le Mans and the ACO, the Automobile Club de l'Ouest, were very proud of implementing the Garage 56 project, which started back in 2012, and it was designated and designed for innovation and an innovative entry. So from the American-made Delta Wing, which was a very unique car, to, say, hydrogen fuel cell cars, anything that was, you know, breaking new ground and going further. What was your take on it, first of all, to take a NASCAR stock car and cup car to Le Mans?
Crazy. Initially, it really was. I'm in my office and I get a letter from NASCAR and I'm like, man, when I usually get these, they aren't always good. So I open it up and it literally says, Mr. France requests your presence on a trip to Le Mans. And I'm like, man, that's in a month or something like that. I'm like, this can't be right. Surely he would call me, right? But no, it's just a letter from his office. So I call him and he's like, yeah, we're gonna go to Le Mans and I'd like for you to tag along with us. And this was during COVID. We fly over there, myself and John Doonan and a couple others on Mr. France's plane. Experience it, really unique, amazing, cars are awesome, the technology is really super trick. But then on the way back home, I see this video and they start talking about this. And I'm like, wait, I was just set up. Like they drug me all the way over here to get familiar with it, to then just drop the bomb like, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. And then at that point, I was like, okay, this can really be a reality and this will be a lot of fun. And it's different. And what's cool about Garage 56 is they're trying to showcase technology that's unique to the environment. Mm-hmm. It's not a prototype, it's not a GT class, it's something different. And that's what the NASCAR race car brought to Le Mans.
You were on Mr. France's plane. In Sebring in 2022, I was on Mr. H's plane, and he said to me, who do you think should drive? And I said, I'm not saying that. And he said, no, I'm interested. Who do you think? And I said, well, naturally, it probably should be Jeff and Jimmie, and then somebody who knows Le Mans. And he says, okay, we'll hold off on Jeff for now. But he's like, and he called you. I was sitting right opposite him. What was it like when you got that call? And he said, what do you think about racing Le Mans?
I mean, it's the call you hope to get, you know, to go to Le Mans and participate and have fun, you know, experience everything that's there. It took me a minute to really understand if he was pulling my leg, because he can do that quite often, or not, if it was real. And so to have it, the reality and knowing it was real, and then in my mind run through how I can be back together with my NASCAR family and the place where, you know, I grew up, and I don't know, just to go home in a sense was so special for me, and that just continued to get better from that phone call until the checkered flag fell, and unfortunately we had to go home. Like, I did not want that period of time to end. It was so fun.
Was there ever a chance that you were going to get in the car?
No, I mean, get in the car maybe, but you know, not to race in Le Mans. I mean, you know, and I admire Jimmie, you know, jumps in so many different types of cars, and you know, he still wants to challenge and push himself at that level. I just feel like, you know, when I stepped out of the car, you know, I was ready to move on to the next thing in my life. I really didn't want to compete at that level because I know the commitment that it takes. And this was a massive commitment. I mean, from everybody, you know, a 24-hour race and the physical aspect of it, all the testing, all the laps, the simulator, everything. I did get in the simulator early on, which was fun. Me and Mike Rockenfeller kind of went back and forth, enjoyed that. I think I'd always hoped to get in the car maybe at a test just to drive. I have driven it since, but, you know, I always knew that this was more for Jimmie and, you know, for guys that had experience either, you know, in a stock car today or at Le Mans or be, you know, on a road course like Jensen and Mike and Jimmie's a perfect, you know, 7-time NASCAR champion who can represent the sport of NASCAR driving a car like this better than Jimmie. Nobody.
As you'll see in the feature-length documentary, American Thunder, the Garage 56 project involves racing against yourself, ostensibly. What was it like knowing that you were in your own category, but I was there, I called that 100th anniversary Le Mans, and I saw the intensity that you had on your face to drive this team as if you were racing the rest of that field. What was that like for you?
You were racing the rest of the field.
Well, you were.
With this guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know, I thought you knew Chad better than this.
We were on a mission to go over there and compete, and Mr. Hendrick said this from the very onset. He wanted to go over there and showcase what we were capable of doing and compete at a very high level. And that was the guidance, and that's what we were going to do. And we prepared as though we were going over there to win the 24-hour event. We prepared as though we were going over there to pit a 24-hour event like champions would. And we wanted to represent our country and our sport and our partners at an extremely high level. It was great. It was one of the most fun experiences I've been able to be a part of, because you were actually able to take the gloves off and scrap and fight and claw and make the race car better that you're just not capable of doing to race cars in most classes today.
Did the car surprise you, how well it performed?
Without a doubt. Watching Chad and Hendrick Motorsports adapt the car for the environment, you need a much bigger fuel cell. Where do you put that? That's a traditional NASCAR vehicle. So there are all these different elements, and you give Hendrick a chance to really engineer something. One big aspect we had was the weight. We need to get weight out of the car. And so with the big fuel cell in it, so to watch the car kind of morph along and come together and the performance behind it was really a lot of fun. And I'd been away from stock cars for a bit and was in an IndyCar. And so I just didn't know where it was going to hit on the performance envelope. And it really surprised me in what it could do. The interest that other competitors had in this car was something that I'll never forget. And I assume, and no one really said it to me, but we certainly had a chip on our shoulders, because internationally, you know, us NASCAR guys don't feel like we're as respected as we probably should be. And we knew that going into it. And as Chad pointed out, the effort put forth by all, we knew we were going to be probably held to a higher standard or judged on a different level. And to show up and impress top to bottom, and then to not only outrun the GT cars, but to annoy all the LMP2 cars as we did, people just couldn't believe it. And the thing I'll never forget as well is the pit stop competition. We had a jackman operating a manual jack, and we made the podium in a pit stop competition against these light little cars with air jacks on them. And as we're going to the podium to celebrate with the guys, the jackman, he wasn't gonna leave his jack behind. He carried that thing all the way down pit lane and up onto the podium. It was incredible.
Jeff, for years at Le Mans, I've had the fortune of calling many 24 hours at Le Mans, and the American Thunder label for this documentary is so appropriate, because for years, the Europeans have been fascinated with American Thunder just in American road cars, but at Le Mans in particular. How important was this for you and for Hendrick and for NASCAR and for all of the stakeholders in this project? What did it do for American motorsport on a global scale?
This is what blew me away about Jim, and still today, is that he said that was going to happen. Like he said, they're not just going to see us, they're going to hear us. And he goes, and I think that's going to be amazing. I think you're going to see a reaction like you've never seen. And I was like, okay, you know, I was thinking these super light, fast sports cars, high downforce, they got to be more impressed with that. The first day I was driving into the track, come through the tunnel, and I was asking people that were in the vehicle with us, I said, you know, hey, are we on track right now? And they're like, oh, I'm not really sure. And all of a sudden, boom, I mean, like a mile away, right? And I was like, yep, Yep, we're on track. And of course, I'm used to hearing that sound. But then when you realize that that's the only car that makes that sound, and it's so distinct and so, just raw and all-American V8 thunder to that point. And everywhere I went, that's what everybody was saying is, that car would go by and you just see fans just react, like every time it went by. And of course, I think the best reaction was the day of the race. Everybody's leaving the grid, the cars are about to fire up. Drivers, start your engines. And they all fire up and you don't hardly hear them, and then and 100,000 people, however many are sitting on that front straightaway, all cheered. And that was, I think that was Jim's moment. And I think Rick's as well. Like, that was the moment. It's like, yes, this is what we came here for.
Did you feel a little bit like an Olympian, representing the Stars and Stripes, representing your country on foreign soil?
Yeah, there was some of that for sure. Although Jensen and Rocky kind of messed that up in a way, but yeah, absolutely.
They're not here. This is just you.
No, for sure. There was so many prideful moments being back with Chevrolet, being back with Hendrick Motorsports, being back in a NASCAR vehicle, representing my country, knowing that we had this little chip on our shoulder that we all wanted to perform and show our best. It felt much different than racing, in the States.
Chad, were you blown away by the reception when the driver autograph session, when they open up pit lane and all of the drivers are out there? And I remember vividly looking up pit road and the Garage 56 Chevrolet Camaro, you couldn't move in pit lane for the amount of interest. Did that blow you away?
It absolutely did. And we were understanding the impact we were having locally, which was great. And we could see it throughout the course of the race. We unfortunately had a transaxle issue. We came into the garage in the late stage of the race, were able to change it. When we rolled back out, the fans went nuts, right? They were so excited that we were going to be able to complete the race. But I had no idea the impact it was having stateside until it was all done and we hopped on the airplanes and we got back here to the United States. And that's when you really saw the Twitter posts, the Instagram posts, the articles, all the E's, all of that stuff was
amazing. Memes.
Yes, it was amazing.
Those memes are awesome.
They are great, right? And they're still ticking today. So that's when I really got the goosebumps, because when you're in the moment, you're competing and you're focused and you're driving and you're everybody's trying to give everything they've got to be successful in that program. But man, when you take a moment to be able to reflect, especially once again with your peers stateside, it was really phenomenal.
Jimmie, Jeff just gave an anecdote of a really key moment. What blew you away the most?
There's so many points, but the finishing the race. After the entire journey, there's so many amazing moments building up to it, but the way it played out, I think Rocky was to finish the race. And everyone gets together, and I'm there to watch Rocky get in the car, and they're like, "You're getting in the car." Really? Like, okay, great. I want that honor. So that was amazing. Coming by the finish line and seeing everybody hanging off the wall and that parade lap in, that was extremely special.
You experienced both highs and lows at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. You know how tough it is to complete a 24-hour endurance sports car race. This was an amazing accomplishment. What surprised you at the end of it?
Well, and it's not just the race and what's happening to the end. Are you going to complete it? It's the journey along the way, right, of all the challenges. And that's, I think, what you're going to see in the documentary of it wasn't just easy, right? Besides just trying to make the car perform, lighten the car up, adding electronics that we don't normally run, and Goodyear's development of the tire. But we were at Sebring, and I was there just to watch. I just wanted to see the car on track. And Jimmie was in the car, and there was a fire. Some rubber had built up. And, I think had that not happened at that test, right, it could have happened in Le Mans. So, this is why you test, but this is why you go through everything. And all the challenges that, Chad and the whole team and the drivers had to do to solve these challenges that you're probably going to face in 24 hours and then some. To me, the journey to get there, yeah, we had the transaxle issue, which was a bummer, right, because everything else was just going flawless. Running in the rain. There were still a lot of challenges through that 24-hour race. But I agree, one of the highlights for me was was seeing the car, Jimmie cross the line. Of course, it's the only race in the world where you're holding a glass of champagne while it happens. But I mean, there were tears, there were hugs, there was just this overwhelming joy of emotion of we came, and again, the journey, like everything that went into it, and we came here and we wowed a lot of people. They knew we were here, we made an impact. They're probably never gonna forget, you know, Chevrolet, NASCAR, Goodyear, the drivers, the whole team, Hendrick, and we completed the race. So yeah, it was really, really special.
Kind of like the old joke, a man and a horse walk into a bar kind of thing. There's a Formula One world champion, a Le Mans winner, a 7-time Cup champion in a NASCAR Cup car going to Le Mans, and it succeeds.
Succeeds.
It's improbable, but it's not impossible, and you guys proved that.
We did, and again, just the collective effort. And when I think of the driver lineup and the experience that Mike Rockenfeller brought to the program and really helped get this thing started and rolling, Jensen turns up at the Sebring event. We're still trying to figure out the third driver. His interest in being there, the experience and notoriety that he brings to the program, amazing fit. And then, our three personalities to mix in with engineering, and it wasn't just engineering at Hendrick, but from a tire standpoint and the electronics, all these different elements, to have that many personalities get along and truly treat it like we were racing, it was wild. And then in the race, we were challenged with a safety car scenario that, for whatever reason, our car didn't qualify for the traditional rules and regulations. We found ourselves a lap down. And then we had a rabbit to chase, and we wanted to get back on the lead lap, so we do. And then we want to get back to the front of the GT field, and we do. So the program was full of racers, and that was one of the other very cool elements that went with this.
Can we talk about Rocky real quick? Because
Mr. Negativity?
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole time it was, this isn't working right. No, the car's not fast enough. It's this, or this, or this. I just remember the first time I saw him at Le Mans, I said, well, how's the car? And he's like, it's beautiful. It's amazing. I'm like, really? Coming from you, that's shocking.
And we'll talk more about that in a moment, because we're celebrating and commemorating. This is 2 years ago, right? The summer of 2023, Project 56 with this Chevrolet Camaro at Le Mans. 3 more gentlemen will join them after the break from 3 different entities that were an integral part of making this project successful. Back in a moment. Welcome back as we continue our celebration of NASCAR to Le Mans, presented by Goodyear. And joining Jeff, Jimmie, and Chad are 3 gentlemen who were intimately involved in this program. John Doonan, president of IMSA and program manager of Garage 56. Are you the one to blame for this? We'll get to that in a moment. Justin Fantozzi, who is the operations manager of Global Race Tires at Goodyear, and Mark Stilo from General Motors, who is the general manager of competition engineering,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So you were intimately involved in this. John, how did this start?
Well, remember Mr. France coming into my office in Daytona Beach, my IMSA office, and saying, "Congratulations, John." I said, "Well, what do you mean, Jim?" He said, "Well, you're going to lead the Garage 56 project." Okay. And he went on to say that his vision was to replicate what his father had done in 1976, put NASCAR on a global stage, and assemble the best of the best, the winningest brand in NASCAR history, NASCAR's tire partner since 1954, and the winningest race team in NASCAR history, and show the world what NASCAR is all about.
Before I get to Justin and Mark, you get to ask your question.
Yeah, which one?
Who was the hardest sell?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't. When as soon as you sat down, John, I was like, all right, who was it? Because it was not an easy sell. I know Rick, it was not on his radar to go to Le Mans, I can tell you that. No. So that had to be a tough one.
No.
I remember in our first meeting, Mark Royce had a lot of, skepticism. So who was it?
Well, we built that video that you referenced in the first segment. When I hit play on that thing in Daytona Beach and you guys were there, I remember you said something to Rick, this is a legacy moment for Hendrick Motorsport. You know, obviously what you guys have accomplished is massive legacy, but this is a moment, a heritage moment for the history of your team and your program. But I do remember when we had the press conference in Sebring. Leigh, you were on the plane with Jimmie and everybody, and here I am, you know, I drive out on the tarmac to welcome everybody, and Rick, I think, was the first person down, and he said, "Big John, we're about to get pregnant." And so I would say Rick in all aspects, but you know, the General Motors folks were fully on board. The Goodyear team, amazing story of development, and these guys went and executed it flawlessly.
Justin, is this the stuff that engineering dreams are made of? Like, okay, you've got to make a tire for this car to go to Le Mans.
You know, it really is, and I'll congratulate our team, and I'll start there. There was about 90 different folks that had some part in it, whether it was the engineering team directly or logistics, supply chain, manufacturing. The only question I had when it got pitched was, are we talking 22 or are we talking 23? Because I don't know if I can get there in 6 months. Because we were talking in Daytona, and as soon as it was 18 months, it was absolutely no problem, full speed ahead. And you know, it's kind of like putting the band back together, to take development notes from Jimmie's input, and then to work with Jensen and to work with Rocky and to work with Coach Jordan. You know, sometimes Jordan gets left out, and then we actually put one of our test drivers in the vehicle in San Angelo when we did the wet test. It was mega because he was able then to teach Rocky the circuit, and then we were able to design and develop an intermediate tire and a full wet.
I think a lot of people that I've spoken to have wondered, was there any crossover? Did you learn something from this program that may eventually, or already has, filtered over to NASCAR Cup Series competition?
Without a doubt, it already has. You know, we took softs for the night, we took hards for the middle of the day. We just saw that at Phoenix with the option tire. We saw it last year with Richmond. And as much as it is the tire portion of it that transfers real one-to-one, it's also the humans. We're able to then to shift engineers around that worked on the project that can work on other projects. And then it's the computer tools. You know, we're able to design and develop computer tools that can then also shift around.
And they were beat up constantly. I am telling you, it was never fast enough. We always needed a faster tire. We needed a more durable tire. We needed one that would go double stints. Like we had all these visions of the things that we wanted, and they were open to every option. And that's the thing that I would think I was most proud of for Goodyear and their standpoint, is they were always like, okay, let's try it. Okay, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. And we would go to the racetrack with multiple compounds, multiple configurations of tire, whether it be wets or dries, and we would just run laps. And they came up with some of those perfect. And I think it's really unsung in the whole scope of this thing. It's a huge element that really provided a lot of performance. Jimmie got to drive it in the wet.
On slicks, that was a blast.
and it worked out great.
8.5 mile lap. I go by the end of pit lane, torrential downpour. I'm like, this is gonna be a long lap.
This is the worst thing ever, right? So we're thinking, okay, we want to make this easy on Jimmie. We want to put him in the car, let him go as the sun is setting, so he's not going out there just in the dark. And we want to make sure it's not wet. So we're watching, there's not a cloud in the sky, the sun's setting, it's gonna be perfect. And as soon as we put him in the car, there's a pop-up shower, it's downpouring, and he's just like, well, it's raining, guys. I'm like,
dumping.
Well, good luck. Chaos. We'll see you in about 4 minutes.
Mark, from a General Motors standpoint, you didn't have anything to prove at Le Mans.
Yeah.
So many years of wonderful success. Tell us what GM's standpoint was and how exciting or how difficult or how amazing this project was.
Well, you know, for us, it was the 100th anniversary of Le Mans, so we brought this project, plus we have debuted our hypercar with Cadillac and Corvette. It was a great event for GM because Garage 56 exceeded expectations. It qualified, you know, in front of all the GT cars, which was phenomenal. One of our goals that we were driving for the whole time, and then just the reaction of the fans. But also at the same time, Cadillac went on to get onto the podium, and Corvette won its class. So, you know, my end of year review with my boss was good. You know,
promotion. We want to go there, and we want to show the world what NASCAR is about. And as Chad referenced, Mr. H wanted to go there, and we're going to do this right, or we're not going to do it at all. Jim said, you know, I remember Dick Brooks and Herschel McGriff saying the fans loved our cars in '76. But like you, Jeff, I was like, well, I think they're going to like it. But from the day we rolled it out of the truck, And the other teams were the first ones, drivers, crew members coming down to see what this thing is all about. And then the fans, we took it downtown to the square when you drove it, Jimmy, and it was the flock and the sound. They all had Hendrick 48, Chevrolet, Goodyear stuff they were rabid fans of this, and it just continued chanting USA. I mean, it was...
Yeah. Now, let's be honest. The other teams and drivers didn't come over till they saw the stopwatch.
Well, so this is what's really interesting. So we went to the first drivers meeting.
Yes.
And a GT driver stood up and said, what are we going to do with this Garage 56 car when it's in the way? Surely it's not going to be gridded anywhere near us. Wow. We hadn't had practice yet. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So then we go out and practice. And we are seconds faster than what this guy was, yeah. Right? Because
he had him pegged.
I marked his name down, and I was like, there you go. See who's talking now, right? But what was so interesting, and John mentioned it, it wasn't just the fans that we went over. It was the drivers. It was the teams. It was the officials. There was an ACO official. His name was Bernard. He was on some of our later development weekly calls, and He's like, look, the performance level needs to be X, otherwise we're going to have to institute Y. There's going to be a resultant. So we go out there for the first practice session, and Rocky rips, and we're like, wow, that was actually pretty fast. Like we have no idea. We only have our simulations to work off of, right? And it comes right under the radar of where they wanted us to be, right under a 4-minute lap. I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. He scatters off. We're working on the car. He comes back and he says, okay, here's the deal. You're either going to have to go faster, or we're going to have to slow you down a lot. We can't have you in the middle of the GT class. And I said, okay, how much faster do you want us to go? he said,
when have you ever been asked that question?
He said, how much faster can you go? And I was like, well, let's find out. And we just started turning up the wick. And the next thing you know, we're seconds faster than the fastest GT car. And he was like, by the time he was done, he was wearing a Garage 56 hat and a Garage 56 jacket. He felt invested in the program. And that's my point. Everybody that was involved with it felt some investment into the program and was proud of it.
We're talking, Justin, about the various entities involved to pull this together, to actually make it happen. And that naturally leads one to think, well, what do they get out of it? So what did Goodyear get out of it? What did you guys learn?
Well, there's so much that you get out of it, not just the tire piece and the human piece like we talked about earlier, but you take away friendships, you take away all kinds of stuff. I brought a prop.
Uh-oh.
Okay?
Uh-oh.
So you were talking about the champagne earlier. Right, so over my career, I have grabbed small little things that may not mean much. So if I bought this for my home winery, it would be 25 cents. But the emotions, just the human drain of being up for, it's not 24 hours, right? Because you got morning warm up and then you've got all the other stuff that's going on. So it stretches into 40. It's been a great experience. We knew what the responsibility was on our end, being the only 4 things that touch the ground, and just humbled to be able to be a part of it.
Mark, what did your staff on the GM side of it get out of it, or what did you see from them because it was such a different and unique challenge?
We were able to stretch some people. We had some assignments like how to get headlights in the car, how to get taillights in the car, how to get rear view mirrors on the car. So I worked with design staff, GM design staff, and we came up with a lot of back and forth, a lot of meetings with John Doonan and different people, but working with Delara and internal people, we came up with a package that fit the bill, put out enough power and lighting for at night. I hope it was good enough at night. And we were able to put all that together and make it work. So it was great. And then on the engine side, we worked with HCD and coming up with a proper IR fuel injection system so we could have a proper sequential shift on it. And a lot of those things, we really kind of took the R07 engine architecture and kind of pushed it. And like, how far can we run this thing? Like we run these things every weekend hard, but we don't really run them 24 hours. So, so we had to really go through and find out where the soft points were, and it was fantastic. Everybody did a great job.
Were those the headlights that Chad was waiting for, like the day before everything was being
Probably.
shipped?
It was last minute, man.
I remember that.
It was tight. It was tight.
Hey, John, we're in very much a celebratory mood, even though it's 2 years on. But there's always challenges, right? Was there any pushback? What don't we know?
I think early on, to selling the program to these all-star partners of NASCAR, I think there was a lot of uncertainty. Is this possible? Oh my gosh, we don't want to go there and embarrass ourselves. So I think those kinds of things. But when we started really rolling, I can't explain. You talked about the magic that these three guys created at Hendrick Motorsport and the championships they've won. But when we went to San Angelo and tested at the Goodyear facility, when we got the first dyno runs of, you're right, the R07 that does the Goodyear 400, the Daytona 500, the Coke 600, but it's never done 24 hours. And so I think for me, every one of those little challenges, we just came together like a fraternity or a sorority of people that I'll never forget. You know, it's somewhat rare for the president of IMSA to go to a NASCAR race, but when I see crew members, team members, people that worked with Goodyear and the tire inventory, or Mark's engineers, there is a special bond that was formed in this project that I don't think anyone will ever forget. You know, these guys, as I say, like I was Richard Petty, Terry Labonte, then I was Jeff Gordon fan, a Jimmie Johnson fan. To get to even be sitting here with these guys was the Chad Knaus. I honestly couldn't believe it. And I think the bond that was formed here, any of those challenges were overcome, and there's a special twinkle in everyone's eye or a special handshake from this project that in my career I'll never forget.
I can remember seeing you and Mr. France and Mr. Helton, Ed Bennett, and some others in the paddock, and just you guys were you were like kids. You're like kids just walking around. I mean, that must have felt so special.
It was unreal, and for me, because I knew the history, I knew what this meant to Jim France.
Yeah.
To be honest, and that's what gets to me, candidly, because he wanted to go over there and redo what his dad did.
It was almost 50 years.
It was 50
right?
years almost to the day. And on NASCAR's 75th anniversary, the 100th anniversary of this great race, with all these great partners, it was magical. The drivers, the way they came together, it was like they had driven together their entire careers. It was just an absolute all-star team, I guess, or Olympic team that went over there, and we accomplished what we set out to.
This is just a little taste of what you're going to see in the documentary, American Thunder. You're each going to get your own chance. So if you're towards the end of the line, you'll have more time to think about it. But Jimmie, because you were driving this thing, you get to go first. Tell us a funny story. Could be about you, could be about Rocky, could be about Jenson Button. What was one of your funniest memories coming away from the Garage 56 project?
Well, what comes to mind first is the seriousness that Jenson and Rocky and even Jordan brought to the equation. And then you have Chad, myself, and Greg, and we would have these engineering meetings after. And we took it all very, very seriously. But in the engineering meeting, we're gonna have a beer. And we just had an awesome day at Le Mans. And so me, Greg, and Chad pop a beer, and Rocky and Jenson and Jordan are like,
"What are you doing?
What are you guys doing? It's race weekend." We're like, it's like 5 days from now, 4 days from now. I mean, come on, we're fine. And so we slowly got them to come around the corner and relax a little bit.
Mark, you're up.
Oh, I guess the funny story was after we had the meeting at the Daytona 24-hour, you know, we all got kind of this dropped on the table, and then there was a closed door meeting afterwards, and the GM people kind of huddled up like, it's a good thing to do. It's going to be expensive and a lot of work. You know, we decided to lean into it and do it, but the initial first reaction was always like, you know, this is another big lift on our plate, but we all locked together and made great friendships, and it worked out good.
All right, Justin, you're up.
Well, I'll truly go funny, but I'll keep the names out of it. One of our guys wasn't paying attention during the brake change, and they came rushing through the back of the house with all the pieces that were needed, and he had just made himself a nice cup of coffee, and he got tagged. The coffee goes all over the place. His fire suit's soaking wet. It was, internally, we were dying because we knew the seriousness of trying to get the brake change done, and so that was.
They're the kind of things that get you through the 24 hours.
And I made sure that when we did the documentary, we didn't cut out those scenes. So it's there. It's like a little Easter egg for people to find.
Chad, you were the team principal on this project. There's got to be a million funny stories.
There are a lot, and I think probably the one that resonates the most for me is got to go back and include Mr. Hendrick, because he said throughout this whole program, because obviously I got very tight with John and everybody here, but I got really tight with Mr. France. Rick always puts a spin on there. You went from the most hated criminal in NASCAR racing to Jim France's best friend working on this car to take to Le Mans. And
you couldn't get in trouble this time.
I was like, man, this is like a perfect opportunity. So that's one that Rick always spoke about.
That's awesome. John?
Well, funny going to San Angelo. We had to get out there at like 5 in the morning because it's a closed research center, and there is nothing out there, and it is pitch black. And I think it's 5 in the morning, and I'm driving a rental car, and Rocky said, if we get lost, like, no one will ever find us. So that one sticks in my mind. But it was magical. It was a magical experience, and I'm just so thrilled that I had the opportunity to be part of it and meet so many incredible men and women that executed it.
I think what does stand out to me, other than that moment when Jimmie crossed the line and the whole team celebrating, that moment was magical. But I think what stands out to me the most is that I just remember Jim, from the very beginning, was just, we're going to do this. It's going to work. No problem. Absolute. Car will have plenty of speed. Like, he was so steadfast on, like, no doubt in his mind. And I went from that to the first time I talked to Chad, and I said, Chad, here's what they're asking us to do. What do you think? He's like, impossible. Can't happen. There's no way. You can't take that car and go. And by the way, we don't have enough time. What are we going to do? Who's going to drive it? We can't take. I mean, it's just a long list of things of why it was impossible, right? And what I love about that with Chad is that is his mindset until he knows, but we have to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's just full steam ahead. So I think the differences between, you know, Jim and his passion for it and the challenges that it faced that guys like Chad had to work through was something that just stands out to me as why this was so special.
Ideal situation would be to bring a bottle of bourbon out here and sit it down and just talk, because it would be a flurry of stuff, man.
Rocky and Jensen complaining about how the car stops, and Jimmy's like, it's driving like a stock car, guys. Like they're remember that at Daytona?
Yeah.
First time the headlights were on. Just there's so many.
We're in the shop. We got all the light. We had to stay in the shop until 10 o'clock at night, make sure the sun was set all the way because we have skylights. Turned all the lights off and trying to get them turned in and tuned in, and we got to make more, and had to get the lower fairing lights made, and it was just a lot.
The fire at the test was a big one.
Yeah.
But you know what? The
fire started right when I went by pit in, and I was like, damn, I've got to make it all the way around.
Hey,
guys,
you came in, that thing was on
It was raging.
fire. I can't believe you drove it all the way around.
I couldn't let it burn.
I'm seeing some sparks. I'm seeing some
sparks,
guys. And then the next time it was, yeah, guys, I'm seeing a lot of sparks. And, yeah, I think it's on fire going on the back straight.
Yep.
And you know what the thing was, though? Nobody panicked in that whole time.
Okay.
Like the team saw.
I hit my net down belt, so I'm from like 4th gear flat down.
Well, I'm just saying on the crew side of it, yeah. I think even Ben Wright's like, yeah, we're gonna have to probably call it a night here, guys. And Jimmy's like, what are you talking about? This is endurance racing. We're gonna fix it and we're gonna go. And it was methodical, and you found the rubber buildup and.
What was that, Sebring?
Yeah. It was a 24-hour test.
We did a 24-hour test in Sebring.
Yeah.
Like, how insane is that?
Only car out there.
No, we did 24 hours, but because we were down fixing the car, we continued on and ran like 36 hours.
Like
some extra.
Yeah, because we were down a couple hours.
And the fog was so bad.
Jensen was
Jensen couldn't see.
Yeah,
like, it's literally
fog.
a wall of fog.
And
like
Jensen's like, yeah, I can't see much. Chad's like, 10-4, copy.
Keep going.
Keep going.
I went there to watch about 8 hours, and I ended up basically listening to 24 hours because you couldn't sleep. You're at the hotel, and the damn car's so loud.
Well,
and it'd go, and just about the time I'd start to fall asleep, I'm like, damn.
So during the night, I went over to the hotel to pick something up out of my room, and there was a poor lady at the front desk. And it's probably like 2:30 in the morning, and she's like, are they going to be doing that all night? and I go up, I come back down, and she's out in front of the hotel on her cell phone seeing if she can get a room at another hotel in town.
We got so lucky. Our first 3 tests, it rained the first day of every test.
Yeah.
Every test. Now, VIR was really cold.
VIR. Yeah, cold and
really
wet.
cold and wet, and it was sleeting, but man, we were able to practice in the rain. The next day was dry. Like it. If you really think about how all these things stacked up,
every piece of the puzzle,
it really worked out well for us.
Well, on behalf of the fans, whether they be NASCAR fans, sports car fans, to all of you and all of your respective teams, congratulations. Because from my standpoint, it was a spectacle to be there and see it in the flesh, and then to call the race was truly a treat to see this. Enormous workload, enormous investment, but the end result was so satisfying, and it's something Hopefully we won't have to wait another 50 years to see it again, but you're going to thoroughly enjoy the documentary, folks, and what you've heard here today is just a snippet, and it will help you understand more when you see American Thunder. Enjoy. Thanks, guys.
That was fun.
Wow.
Enjoyed that.
You brought the champagne cork. That's awesome.
That was fun to relive.
Awesome.